Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is George Kyle. You guys are used to sort of clothing and perfume videos, but it's a bit of a different video today, possibly just a one-off, but maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how things go. I am proud and very excited at the fact that Manchester United have re-signed Cristiano Ronaldo. It's quite unbelievable, really, given the situation that was apparently about to happen only a few hours ago. We thought the worst, that Manchester United were going to lose out to Ronaldo, to our City rivals, but ultimately it's so positive, and I'm so glad that Ronaldo has chosen to come to Manchester United. There was initially, I do believe that City definitely had some genuine interest and concrete interest in Ronaldo, but ultimately he's ended up where he belongs, back at Manchester United. As we know now, he's coming sort of to the twilight of his career, Cristiano Ronaldo. But I'm pretty sure that he can still offer us so much moving forward with Manchester United. It's quite difficult sometimes to sort of get the right words, really, because Ronaldo has meant a lot to me ever since he started playing for Manchester United back in 2003 when he signed. At that juncture, we saw someone who definitely had talent and all the potential in the world, but it was someone who you weren't necessarily sure would realise their potential. And as we know in football, more often than not, players won't go on to become what they could become. But I think in Ronaldo's case, he's become all that and more. He initially was a bit of a show pony. He seemed more adept, and he seemed more likely to do tricks and step overs and flicks than he was to, provide end product in those initial few years at Manchester United. But then he watched a video as well at the training ground, which showcased many of the great finishers and great players that we've had at Manchester United. It was from that moment on, and the work ethic that Cristiano Ronaldo has been absolutely exemplary. That he became, and a more evolved and creative and finished article at Manchester United. As we know, he had probably the last 3 years at Manchester United, he was one of, if not, and in fact, in my view at least, the best player in the world over that period. Often, Gary Neville, I think, even talks about it, saying that he believes that there were only a couple of seasons where Manchester United had one player to count for their league title, and I believe he is alluding in one of those to Cristiano Ronaldo in 2006, 2007. And hello as well, just very quickly before we move on, as well, hello to Doobie Guy, who's the second, in fact, moderator on this channel. Flex47, my first moderator, and now as well Jay Hart, who just says the GOAT is coming home, which, yeah, I mean, ultimately that is the overriding feeling is one of intense joy and celebration that is indeed happening. It's a day that we didn't necessarily think would ever come. As I said, at Manchester United, just briefly talking about the history of Ronaldo, he was someone who always excited and tantalised when he played. I remember, particularly in the FA Cup final against Millwall in 2004. I remember he was man of the match in that particular game. He did seem at that point to really be honing his craft and skills. And then, of course, as well, that you had, the ultimate battle of one of the last battles of Highbury as well, which I recollect, with great fondness. Back in 2005, I believe it was, in the springtime, where Ronaldo was, I think it was almost a changing of the guard. As we know, in the early noughties, Arsenal and Manchester United were, and obviously the late 90s as well, Arsenal and Manchester United were definitely the preeminent sides. But it seemed like at that, at that point in that particular match, it was almost like the final battle of that epic war. As many sort of older viewers and obviously people who will recall, it was a 4-2 victory that day. Roy Keane was defending, as we know, Gary Neville in the tunnel that day from Patrick Vieira, and obviously Manchester United went and proved on the pitch that they were the better team. Obviously later in that year we did lose the FA Cup final to Arsenal on penalties, which was their last trophy for quite some time, as we know. Obviously, I think it was that match for me that symbolised the changing of the guard, and our two of our shining lights were two youngsters in Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo scored twice that day, and after the second goal, which was from a Ryan Giggs cross and a tap in, he was deliberately shushing the Arsenal fans, which was a peak moment for someone at that age who was only 19 years of age. Ronaldo was already a prodigious talent, as even at that juncture. But as I said, in 06, 07, he was incredible. 07, 08, probably the greatest, in my opinion, in a way, the greatest season individually by any Premier League player ever. Coming up to this, that he won the Ballon d'Or, one of the only two players to win whilst in the Premier League at the current time, and for 42 goals, so many incredible highlights over that year. The towering header against Chelsea, that was a particular tactic as well by Sir Alex. It was to place Ronaldo on the left wing that day because Mikel Essien was the right back, and it was thought that Ronaldo would definitely have the aerial advantage over Essien, and so it proved in that particular goal, with a lovely curling cross from Wes Brown and Ronaldo rising like a salmon to score. It was absolutely instrumental in that. We probably should have won a treble that year, as we all remember, against Portsmouth. It seemed like the goal was leaving a charmed life. Very unlucky, really, because I think that was, for me as well, the best Manchester United side that I've ever seen, and Ronaldo was a key part of it. Also going to go through a few other bits of the comments as well. So Jay Hart's just saying he's tipping for PSG, actually, since Mbappe was waiting to go for Madrid, and obviously Doobie Guy and Flex shouting out to Jay Hart. And then Jay Hart just with Ronaldo, Cavani, Rashford, Greenwood as our choice of strikers, 100 times better than PSG front line. An evening, obviously, to Flex and Doobie Guy from Jay Hart as well. It's a real abundance and a smattering of talent that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to call upon now. Still concerning, about the midfield, in particular at CDM, but definitely up front, there's an embarrassment of riches for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to make a selection from. And as I said, in 08, 09, Ronaldo wasn't quite as good as he had been in 07, 08, but he was still, an incredible footballer even at that point. As we would later find out, of course, he was already going to Real Madrid at that point, was giving Sir Alex Ferguson the extra year, of his time as a favour. But it's important, I think, as well with Ronaldo to realise that when he was a teenager, and he was watching Real Madrid with his friends, he'd always said that was his dream to play for them. And so it was for me, albeit the fact that Ronaldo is my favourite player of all time, I still understood why he wanted to go to Real Madrid, because it had been a dream of his. Eventually, he's obviously made that dream come true and went to Madrid, and left United. And of course, we were devastated. I think it wasn't just the fact that of losing such an incredible player. It was the impact on our team as a whole. I think only a year later, Wayne Rooney, as we know, was agitating to move. It's come out since, in particular, that he'd argued that with the loss of Cristiano Ronaldo, that he felt that Manchester United were going in a very downward direction at that point. And I think as well, you could see, even though we reached the Champions League final again in 2011, I think overall our Champions League form since Ronaldo left, and of course Real Madrid's corresponding form of Champions League when Ronaldo was there, it showed what a massive miss he was in the top echelons of competitive club football. Obviously at Real Madrid, he became more of a out and out goal scorer. He sort of, well, he wasn't quite. I mean, he had been a very potent player for us, but I think he really did learn even more how to make the best opportunities and best decisions in order to improve his chance of goal scoring. Won numerous trophies at Real Madrid, including, of course, the 3 Champions Leagues in a row and 4 Champions Leagues overall. Quite honestly, I think if he had stayed with us, I think we would certainly have more Champions Leagues than we do have. And it's just a shame, of course, that Real Madrid benefited from having a player who ultimately in all big games in the Champions League, pretty much, as we know over many, many years, has always been a difference maker, has always dragged his team out of a mire countless times. Real Madrid very much benefited from having Ronaldo. There was a mad statistic that Ronaldo had contributed over 50% of Real Madrid's goals over those 3 Champions Leagues in terms of direct goal contributions, assists and goals, which just showed what an instrumental part he was of that Real Madrid side. And of course, as well, we're just going to get a couple more comments in here. So from Flex47, he says he remembers the GOAT's debut against Bolton like it was yesterday. And he also says, I recall he said he always wanted to play in white. It was. It's been such a long time. Not having Ronaldo, it's sometimes it can be difficult again to know what to say because it was all so fresh, and you never thought. I think there were many times whilst he was at Real Madrid that he was linked back to us, but often it was paper talk, or it just never seemed like it would ever materialize. And Real Madrid, I think, knew that they'd got, in my opinion, even spending 80 million on Cristiano Ronaldo, they were still. I think that goes down for me as the best transfer of all time. Even at that price, because although it was a world record, it still wasn't. Ronaldo's a player a bit like obviously Messi as well, a player who is almost worth almost start 1 goal a game up every single time, and he's a once in a lifetime player. And of course, Real Madrid, getting to the end of his career, also sold Ronaldo for more than they bought him for. So for me, Real Madrid had the best transfer of all time because ultimately that was a pittance to get a player who, scored at the greatest rate in La Liga, obviously got to 100 goals, I think, in the shortest amount of time in La Liga, probably also got the highest goals per game ratio as well. And also as well, moving on to Juventus, they were able to sell him for an even higher fee, like I said, than they were actually bought him for. So they were very, very lucky. But like I said, for me, I do forgive Ronaldo that because it had been his dream as a small child. And we were very lucky, I think, to have him for those 6 years that we did have him for in his first spell at United. Moved on to Juventus. At that point, I think Manchester United weren't even, didn't even go in for him, and Juventus were being helped out as well substantially in order to make that financial package and to be able to bring Ronaldo to Juventus. And obviously, there, with the financial trouble that's occurred over the last couple of years due to COVID. Those wages, which were extremely high, as we know, would have been very, very taxing financially upon them. At Juventus, I think Ronaldo has struggled somewhat, and I think that's more to do with the fact that the Juventus that Real Madrid were competing with when Ronaldo was winning all those Champions Leagues, they were a much greater caliber of side than the current iteration of Juventus. I think a lot of the players, obviously, with Juventus have aged. They've brought in some very, very poor players, and I think Ronaldo was getting increasingly frustrated. I know as well that Paulo Dybala, for example, had quite a poor injury record whilst he was there, and it seemed often that Ronaldo would have very little help. And I think Ronaldo has always got that aspiration. As we know, he's the most competitive player that has ever been. He's always got that aspiration, no matter how long he's played the game. He always wants to keep on winning, and I think he's felt now at Juventus that isn't really possible. Obviously, they had a terrible showing in Serie A last season, barely scraping into the Champions League. even though Ronaldo was the top scorer of Serie A that year. He obviously, he'd finally done that over the 3 years that he'd finally become the only player ever to be top scorer in England, top scorer in Spain, and top scorer in Italy in one season. He'd finally achieved that personal achievement after a couple of insane seasons from Cagarella, I believe his name is, and also Ciro Immobile on the previous 2 years when he'd come second in both times. So yeah, a good personal year, I think, for Ronaldo in terms of his own achievements. But on the pitch, I think he obviously won the Coppa Italia as well. But in terms of the league, which is where Juventus should always be winning, he really did. He and Juventus struggled. And of course, in the Champions League, anyone who watched that game against Porto, where they struggled to break down a 10-man Porto against a team that they really should be beating every day of the week. I think Ronaldo is always he's got an incredible record in the Champions League, and I think he doesn't see that Juventus have the capability to win that big prize. Obviously, now we now turn to the present day, when he has now moved to Manchester United once again. It feels a bit surreal still to say that. He's come to us, like I said, in the twilight of his career. But Ronaldo has taken care of himself so well that I'm sure he'll be, prolific once again whilst he's here. Coming off being the top scorer in Serie A, and of course, he also has the greatest goals per game ratio in all of Serie A history. He leaves Serie A with that. I think it's 0.84, I believe, which is quite incredible, really, when you consider that that's the entire history of Serie A. And there were quite a few names in that list who were playing, many years ago, when I would suggest that it was slightly easier, somewhat, to score goals in that time. But Ronaldo has always wanted to break records, and it just remains to be seen whether he can with Manchester United. Clearly, it would have been an emotional decision as well to pick us. There's the angle of him wanting to come home and come back to the place that ultimately made him initially. But I'm sure he'll want to win all the big prizes in the league, FA Cup, League Cup, and Champions League. And does this now make Manchester United does this make Manchester United now favourites or among the favourites in order to win those competitions is the big question now that remains to be seen. A lot of people who know me will know that I am Ollie out, and I don't believe that Ollie is necessarily the right person for the job. He now does have all the tools. I think a lot of people said that he didn't necessarily have the players to do to truly compete. But I think with Ronaldo, Sancho, and Varane, I think the only ingredient he's missing is a central defensive midfielder. But I think Manchester City last season played really without a recognised striker, so it's proved that it can be done. You can't just sort of moan until you get a missing piece of the puzzle every single time. And I think he really does have a phenomenal squad, certainly the best squad I feel since Sir Alex Ferguson left, and probably even before then, that Ollie has to call upon. And it's going to be extremely interesting. Just very quickly as well, we've got a couple of comments as well just to read out. So Flex47 says, George, do you think we will win the Premier League in the next 2 years now with the GOAT back at home at a CDM? And I think it will be highly possible. It is possible, but the only issue for me still remains with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and of course, you have spoken obviously about adding the CDM as well. But I think even possibly adding that, I just feel like Ole might still be slightly out of his depth. We have seen too often with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that he makes the same mistakes over and over, and I think that may come back to haunt him. But at the same time, I think if you've got a squad as top heavy, or at least teeming with ammunition that we now have, particularly obviously as Jay Hart said earlier in the stream, with Ronaldo, Cavani, Rashford, Greenwood as choice of strikers. Of course, you add in there as well, you've got Sancho, Ahmad if he stays. You've got, and supplying them Bruno, Pogba, Van de Beek if he gets some more game time. So really, Ollie can't complain. I feel like it's an incredible squad now. And I think Ronaldo will add incredible leadership and mentality to Manchester United moving forward. I think that's one of the things that Manchester United have missed over the past few years is the lack of proven winner. And I think, of course, we haven't even spoken about Rafael Varane too much, but now you've got Varane as well as Ronaldo, so you've probably upped the amount of silverware in that dressing room by exponentially. It's going to be very interesting to see, with those two in there now, you're really talking about what Roy Keane would often say, which is about characters. That's one of the things one of the sort of things he keeps coming out with is characters, good lads, is players who are very strong mentally, and it's winners. And I think that's what Ronaldo gives us in abundance, and so does Varane, to be honest. And Duby Kai said, "Oh, our fitness coaches should learn a lot from Ronaldo." Yeah, I mean, Ronaldo's a paragon of virtue in terms of fitness. I remember a few years ago as well, when he was interviewed, that he's attempting to lower his body fat every single year that he plays. That, of course, is in order to prolong his career. I know that the contract, I believe, is now signed up for in the next couple of years. He's got a 2-year contract with Manchester United, which would take him, I believe, up to about 38 then. And I have in previous interviews, this was a few years ago, he did say that he would play up until he was 41 years of age. So it remains to be seen whether the remaining 3 years will be with Manchester United, or will he might eventually seek pastures anew at that juncture. But it really is truly incredible that Manchester United managed to do this deal for Cristiano Ronaldo. I think it's going to be extremely exciting to see where he's going to fit in. I think for me, you're probably looking at rotation with Ronaldo and Cavani, but because I think in particular when he was at Juventus, you'd often see Ronaldo on this rotating a lot more than he had done at Real Madrid, which would have been for fitness and age, and making sure he was available for important games, which is kind of what we were doing with Ederson and Cavani last season. So I don't know whether we are. I mean, at the moment, of course, there are lots of high-profile journalists and respected people are saying that we are going to retain Cavani. So I don't want to necessarily speak too soon, but if you have Cavani and Ronaldo, you can look to rotate both of those players then, because that will obviously preserve and protect both of them, because of course they are both relatively elder statesmen, but both of course phenomenal strikers, especially in terms of movement, and it's an incredible coaching program. Of course, just to go back to Doobie Guy's point about the fitness coaches, which we'll learn from a lot from Ronaldo. I think also our attackers will learn, and in general our players, but especially the attackers, will learn so much from Ronaldo in terms of movement, anticipation, how to read the game, and making sure you're in the right place at the right time, which of course Cavani does as well. And it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. For example, for people like Rashford, who, to be fair, is getting slightly older now, but you'd still classify as almost a young player. And then also particularly Mason Greenwood, who we all want to become, a Ballon d'Or potential player over the next few years. It's going to be incredible to watch, for him to watch Ronaldo and Cavani. What an incredible training regime that he will have to do so. And Flexboy7 has just said, I think the younger players will benefit tremendously with the GOAT back at Old Trafford, especially the likes of Greenwood. Yeah, I think this might expedite as well deals out of the club for certain footballers. Potentially, I think Ahmad, we still don't know necessarily where he's going, but I think he will potentially move on now, because we do now have a plethora of attacking options, and you can't play all of them. And I think even with, I believe that you're now allowed 9 substitutions in the Premier League. I think even with those, you're not going to be able to fit all of these options on there. Which is going to be a very interesting conundrum for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What I would say to counter that is that we do, obviously, to go back to Doobie Guy's point again about the fitness coaches, what I would say is that we do have a very high rate of injuries at Manchester United, which might then ameliorate or alleviate the options for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But one thing you can say about Cristiano Ronaldo, touch wood, which is what the sort of desk that I'm utilising, you would say that Ronaldo has never had a really serious injury in his career, so he's going to be fit for a lot of the games, and we do need him. And then Doobie Guy said, with the United DNA mentality running through the club, can we see Ronaldo becoming a coach in United after he retires? We can see it, definitely, but and it also wouldn't surprise me, because I think, as I know sort of from my own professional working life, often in life, it's who you know rather than what you know. And we've certainly seen that Manchester United appear to live by that adage with some of the selections of coaching that we've made thus far, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, of course, being head coach, Michael Carrick being an assistant coach, and Darren Fletcher as well being within the coaching team. We've certainly seen that United like to promote ex players, so Ronaldo would certainly fit that particular mould. I also think as well, we saw that Ronaldo does have coaching capability. I mean, we all saw the many sort of memes and of when Ronaldo got injured in that Euro 2016 final when he was coaching with Fernando Santos, and sort of kicking every ball, pointing and gesticulating wildly in order to ensure that Portugal won their first major trophy at that point. So it just remains to be seen whether that's something that interests Ronaldo. It's going to be devastating, I think, for him, and I'm sure he'll cry because he does. He is an emotional person. It's going to be very devastating for him when he hangs up his boots, and that's why he's stated that he's going to continue until he's 41, because I think he's very reluctant to give up. And not only that, but I believe his eldest son, Junior, I think he's sort of said to Ronaldo, "Can we play together?" Which we have seen in football, previously. I believe that Maldini played with his son, and there'll be other examples that other people will be aware of. But I think he'll have to play for another probably about 6-7 years in order to fulfil that, and which he may well do, because you can never put anything past Cristiano Ronaldo. But it will be devastating, I think, when he has to leave the game, not only for the watching world, but also for particularly for Ronaldo himself. And I have a feeling he'll hang on as much as he could, and coaching could be an option, but it'll be very, very hard for him to leave the game fully, I think. So yeah, coaching could be an option. Punditry, of course, as well, but I think coaching. And we've got quite a few comments coming in. So and Flex47 has just said he's happy slapped himself to see if he was dreaming, and he can confirm he's not. Yeah, it does feel a bit. As I've mentioned before, it does feel a bit surreal. It does feel dreamlike. I woke up this morning with a real. Sometimes you sort of wake up and it takes a few seconds sort of to get ready to sort of be aware of yourself, and then I had this horrible sinking feeling in my stomach and in my heart as well, from the fact that Ronaldo was possibly going to Manchester City. So it's relief as well as happiness that's really permeated now. And then Renate said she doesn't see how Ole can fail now, so you might as well get behind him, or are you just over Ole? I will, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer begins to learn his lessons, I am more than happy to support him. However, there has been more than enough evidence over the past few years that he is not going to. So I will always judge Ole on results on the pitch, but also with key decisions, which I think he's been very poor at over quite a few years now. And patience is certain. I think even the patience of a lot of Ole inners is running quite thin with Ole, particularly after that Villarreal result. And Flex says, "You can see the love in your eyes, George. It's making me a little tearful." It's been incredible, really, because I was completely, to be fully truthful, I was totally devastated when Ronaldo left. Even though it was a dream, I thought that I wanted him to stay, of course, because he was my favourite player at that point, and he still is my favourite player. And I'm so glad that he's back with United. Um, I think often, obviously, a lot of United fans feel similarly. They feel like almost that he's a sort of prodigal son that's gone out into the world to earn his fame and fortune even more and explore the world. But now he's back home where he belongs. And obviously Flex and Renate saying hello to each other, and Duby says got to go, see you later. Thank you very much for stopping in, Duby Guy, as always. And obviously Renate and Flex saying later to Duby Guy as well, but thank you for stopping in. But yes, it's really truly incredible, and obviously I wanted to make a short video, so I'm going to close off very presently. I just want to make a short video, one of the only videos that I will have probably of football content, compared to the sort of as I said, the perfume and the clothes things which I normally do on this channel. But I felt this was a very special moment, a unique moment, Ronaldo coming back. It's not often that you'll have someone of that stature coming back after 12 years of effectively, I always think of in the wilderness, but like as I sort of, as we went through, I sort of listed off his career achievements with Portugal, with Real, and with Juventus. But it's, I can't wait to see him back at Manchester United, which he is now. And I think that's probably the thing that's most incredible, is that I don't think any of us really thought, if you were, relatively sensible, I don't think any of us ever thought that Ronaldo would come back. And it feels like a dream come true. He'll be very different from what he was in the first time here. I think he'll be more sort of playing in the centre forward role, and we'll have to create chances for him. That's what we've bought Jadon Sancho for. That's what we've got Paul Pogba for, and that's what we've got Bruno Fernandes for. So they need to tee him up, and we need to make a proper concerted effort now on that league title, and also in the Champions League as well, because as we know, Ronaldo is undoubtedly the greatest player in the Champions League, particularly on the big night. So can he fire us to Champions League glory, or will he not? And yes, I think that's a good way to end it. I would also say that I think Ronaldo for the Golden Boot is what my sort of prediction, and Ronaldo for Player of the Year. I am very much a Ronaldo fan, so I was always going to sort of say that. And yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch him, and we hope he's going to lead us to many trophies. I think Rio Ferdinand sort of said to Varane, he'd certainly be saying to Cristiano, as all of them would have done, the thing is to win, and that's what we want to see now: success in the form of many trophies, which Ronaldo has the attributes and all the minerals to deliver us. And then the final sort of like goodbyes, obviously, goodbye to Renate. Smash a like, guys. The goat's home from Flex, and don't think he'll sleep much tonight. And so happy as well, says Renate. Yes, it's been absolutely it's been absolutely phenomenal. As Flex says, my Twitter display picture stays now. Yeah, I've got a picture of which I've had ever since throughout my Twitter life, which I think began in 2016. I've always had Ronaldo holding up in a Manchester United shirt, holding up the European Cup, the Champions League that he won with us. He's never sort of left my heart ever over this time. Obviously, having his shirt back in the late noughties was, those were sort of some of the best days of my life. Obviously, as a teenager, both because of Manchester United, but just as in general. And it was just incredible to know that you had the shirt of the best player in the world. It was phenomenal times. And yes, I think that's, as you can tell, I'm extremely happy, and I know you guys will be as well. And yeah, it's very emotional, to be honest, Flex. It was probably good that I waited a slight amount of time to do this reaction video, because, and I think there may be more emotion coming out once I sort of fully grasp it, because it is so relatively unexpected. But yeah, that's all for me, guys. Like I said, I want to keep it relatively short so most people can try and hopefully watch this back, if they want to, of course. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. As always, I will maybe do some more football content at certain points, but I've also got other sort of different avenues that I want to explore with the fashion, the perfumes. So watch this space with regards to this channel. And thank you so much, like I said, to all the guys who are joining. So, Doobie Guy, Renate, Flex, and Jay Hart as well. I know that you guys were all in there as well. And if you're watching back, do feel free to drop a comment in the description, in the comments, I should say. And thank you very much for your time, guys. And take care. And Ronaldo is back.